Gur Magadukron, Ohasarum, Louter, Nower Talktuksha, or Salma Grupa. And from an Irish perspective, I think that today's discussion on foreign currency loans is an important one. At a time when ECB rates are at historic lows since the time of the financial crisis, Irish people find themselves in a situation where Irish variable mortgage rates are significantly higher than the EU average. Some banks are charging up to 4% in Ireland, while the EU average is around 2%. It is a situation which my Irish colleagues and I have written a cross-party letter to ECB President Mario Draghi, and we hope it will get a positive response. But it is a discussion today that reminds me of an additional reason for concern. As an Irish public representative related to our high interest rates, to a lot of Irish people, a foreign currency mortgage may look like a great deal. Lower interest rates, longer maturities, it seems like a great idea. An Irish person on a foreign currency mortgage could save an awful lot of money in the short time. However, this is a gamble that must be looked at from a long-term perspective. Despite early savings, there is a huge risk that one will have to pay more in the long run, potentially a lot more. For this reason, I feel there is need to maximise the amount of information that a bank is required to provide to a consumer interested in such a loan, and I call on all Member States to ensure this happens. I think most of us here will agree that if loans are taken out in foreign currency, the economy becomes less stable. When there is a high share of foreign currency loans in the economy, households become very sensitive to fluctuations in the exchange rate. This significantly affects consumption and housing demand. The central bank responds to fluctuations in such output, and therefore more foreign currency loans will lead to stronger adjustments in the short-term interest rates. This in turn makes the exchange rate, and therefore borrowers' expenditure, even more volatile. Additionally, with deep exchange rate depreciations, we will have a surge in servicing costs expressed in domestic currency, and this could bring mass defaults and lead to a systemic banking crisis. I feel that this should even be a warning sign to the United Kingdom voters ahead of the Brexit referendum. If there is to be a sharp depreciation of sterling, as is predicted should Brexit occur, United Kingdom banks would be forced to offer foreign currency loans and possibly bring increased instability to their economy at a time when they would not need any more. In this regard, I welcome the Commission's recognition of the problem of irresponsible lending and borrowing, including the responsible behaviour by market participants that blighted Europe and my own country in particular before the financial crisis. I commend them on the work they are doing to correct these problems. Finally, I want to say to the Commissioner that she is doing good work and we appreciate it, and to keep it going. I call on Member States to implement fully the provisions laid out in the Mortgage Credit Directive. To European consumers, I say, when it comes to currency loans, be aware of the wolf in sheep's clothing.
And finally, the floor will go to our guest, Commissioner Hill. You have the floor.
Mr. President, thank you. And thank you, as a number of colleagues have said, it's been a short debate on a time when the House is not well attended, and I regret that because it's an extremely important subject. I think in terms of some of the themes that have come out from the debate, and perhaps the most important starting point is what can we do to protect consumers in future. Part of that, I think, lies in, as a number of colleagues have referred to, the Mortgage Credit Directive, which will put a better framework in place with specific remedies to protect consumers in case those who take out foreign currency loans, the rates were to rise sharply in cost. But I think more generally, in terms of what we need to try to do to improve retail financial services for consumers across the European Union, we do, I think, need to have more transparency. We do need to try to increase the size of the market so that consumers are able to have the best choice of products that's available. And as Mr. Kelly mentioned, If you look at the pricing of certain financial products across the EU, they vary hugely from country to country. And one of the ideas behind the Retail Financial Services Green Paper that I've launched and the process we're working on is to try to strengthen that single market for retail financial services and think about financial services not from an institutional point of view, but from the point of view of the millions of our fellow citizens who use them. Now, I start with that point because the importance of trying to build a stronger single market for retail financial services links to the point about having a single market for capital and the free flow of capital, which a number of colleagues have referred to. And that, I think, underpins the approach that the Commission has taken in the case of these foreign currency loans. As a number of colleagues have said, it's very important that we strike a balance between the interests of consumers, and clearly there it's absolutely, perfectly proper for Member States to take action to protect the interests of consumers. But at the same time, if we want to uphold the single market in capital, if we want to deepen it and strengthen it, we have to uphold the framework, the legal framework that operates, and we need to make sure that governments, when they take steps perfectly properly to protect consumers, do so within the framework of that law. And that, in essence, is what lies behind the approach that the Commission has sought to develop with a number of Member States. In response to a specific question, I was asked how many Member States consulted the Commission in advance of taking measures. Well, Member States are not obliged to consult the Commission before the adoption of the laws in the fields of financial services. We are monitoring measures in Romania and Poland because their Member States have provided us with their draft laws. We are also, as I said, in discussions with the Croatian government to see if we can find a balanced solution to the challenge that we face. It is not the case, as was alleged, that the Commission is seeking to infringe Member States who take action to protect consumers. That is far from the point. I hope I have been completely clear that it is, of course, absolutely proper for governments to take those actions. But as a number of colleagues have mentioned, the issue of retroactivity is extrememly important. The question of proportionality is extremely important. And the issue where there's no differentiation by governments in the laws they pass between consumers is also a cause for concern. I'm hopeful that we will be able to find practical solutions to the problems that we face. I am encouraged by the support I've had from a number of members of Parliament for the approach that we're taking. I'm personally involved in doing that work, discussing it with ministers. I hope that we will be able to make that progress in order to provide clarity and legal certainty for financial services, but also, of course, for consumers. So far as Croatia specifically is concerned, we're continuing to assess the situation there and to make sure and explore whether the actions they're taking are compatible with the single market and the commitments that Croatia has made under European legislation. We'll keep up the pressure on that, and also we're following discussions in other countries where possible measures in relation to foreign currency loans are being considered, just to check that they are in line with EU law. But this is an important issue. I will keep it firmly under review, and we will take the necessary steps that we need to make sure that consumers are protected, but that we have a common framework, we uphold the rule of law, businesses are able to invest with certainty, because if we want to get growth and jobs to be encouraged, if we want to encourage investment, if we want to build a capital markets union, businesses need to know that they have certainty and that they're able to invest for the long term. Thank you.